In a few hours from now, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to inaugurate West Asia's first traditional Hindu stone-carved temple in Abu Dhabi. Prime Minister Modi is on a two-day trip to the Gulf. Moments ago, Prime Minister Modi held a bilateral meeting with President of Madagascar, Andre Rajoelina, in Dubai. He will now attend the World Government Summit in UAE, where he currently addressed the gathering. Later, he will be inaugurating the WIPS temple today before heading to Doha, where he will meet Qatari Prime Minister. The WIPS temple in Abu Dhabi sits on 27 acres that was gifted by UAE leadership. The construction cost of this architectural marvel is around $95 million, underlining the emphasis of the communal harmony aspect behind the temple construction. The temple committee noted how a Muslim king donated land for a Hindu temple where the lead architect is a Catholic. The project manager, a Sikh, the foundational designer, a Buddhist. The construction company is a Parsi group, and the director comes from the Jain tradition. On Tuesday, Prime Minister Modi met UAE President Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan in Abu Dhabi. The leaders held detailed discussions and signed several MOUs. In a special briefing, the Indian Foreign Ministry said an MOU has been signed on electricity and trade cooperation, along with others on investment, policy research, clean and green energy and others. Another agreement on intergovernment framework for the India-Middle East Economic Corridor was also inked. Later, a stadium full of eager Indian diaspora greeted Prime Minister Narendra Modi. On his two-day visit to the UAE, the Alan Modi event echoed with the chant of Modi Modi at Abu Dhabi's sports stadium. At an event that started with national anthems of the two nations, the Indian Prime Minister praised the deepening synergy between the two nations when he said, "Long live India-UAE friendship."
अबू धाबी में ये भव्य दिव्य मंदिर के लोकार्पण का ऐतिहासिक समय आ गया है। साथियों, भारत यूएई की दोस्ती जितनी जमीन पर मजबूत है, उतना ही उसका परचम अंतरिक्ष में भी लहरा रहा है।
Talking about the India-UAE ties, the two nations are among each other's top trading partners. The bilateral trade touched about $85 billion in 2022-2023. The UAE is also among the top 4 investors in India in terms of foreign direct investments in 2022-2023. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met UAE President Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan in Abu Dhabi on Tuesday. Later in the day, a crowd of over 40,000 people greeted Prime Minister Modi in a mega diaspora event called Alan Modi. Our principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibal, sends us this report. Take a look.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to UAE is underway. We saw yesterday he addressed the Alan Modi Diaspora event where he talked about growing India-UAE relationship and, of course, the role of diaspora strengthening the relationship between the two countries. Today, of course, is another packed day. He will be addressing the World Government Summit in Dubai, and then, of course, later on, he will be inaugurating the WIPS Hindu Mandir, which is the first traditional stone temple of UAE, and this is seen as a pivotal moment in India-UAE relationship. But all in all, a very important visit where 10 MOUs were agreed on, including bilateral investment treaty, which is a key step towards economic cooperation and, of course, interlinking the financial systems of the two countries, including the RuPay cards opening up here in UAE that will help tourists, and UPI coming in this country in next 3 months. With video journalist Sanjeet Siddhant Sibal for WION in UAE.
Moving on. Israel is on the verge of a ground offensive in Gaza's Rafah neighborhood, but the Biden administration which has supported Israel throughout the war, with Hamas has expressed concerns about such an operation. That's because more than 1 million civilians are living and taking refuge in Rafah. Former US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is visiting Israel to see the situation on the ground, and WION's correspondent Jody Cohen was invited to join him. Take a look at this exclusive report.
It's been more than 4 months since Hamas's 7th of October massacre in Israel. I visited the evacuated Kfar Aza with Secretary Pompeo and Israeli MP Ambassador Danny Danon. It was here that Hamas terrorists massacred more than 60 residents, took 19 hostages and left the village in ruins. Next, we saw WION, the site of the Peace Festival, where Hamas killed over 360 young people and took more than 40 hostages. It's here that numerous eyewitnesses have talked about mass rape being carried out. At Ofakim, where Hamas killed 50 civilians, we heard a security briefing, including details of Monday's rescue by Israel Defense Forces of 2 hostages in Rafah. Hamas says the strike killed 100, while the IDF says they came under fire and killed many terrorists in response. The IDF says it has defeated 75% of Hamas battalions, but it needs to defeat the last of the battalions in Rafah and secure the release of the 134 remaining hostages. Difficulty is that Hamas is said to be hiding amongst the civilian population. I spoke with Secretary Pompeo to ask his views about the planned Rafah operation.
Israel's response to what took place on October 7th is perfectly appropriate and, more importantly, necessary. The Israeli government should not permit that threat to remain upon them either. And so however the political solution is for governance in Gaza needs to have as the central thesis Israeli security.
President Biden has called Israel's response to Hamas over the top. Prime Minister Netanyahu responded that taking into account population sizes, the 7th of October was the equivalent of 29 9/11s. And visiting the sites, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo suggested that the United States would have reacted in the same way as Israel. Now, according to a report, Israel has drawn up a plan to evacuate civilians in Rafah, which it has presented to Egypt. And Prime Minister Netanyahu has said that those who call for Israel not to enter Rafah are supporting Hamas staying in power. Egypt has reportedly told Hamas that they have 2 weeks to reach a deal before the ground offensive would begin. This is Jody Cohen for WION World as One.
The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps RGC of Iran claimed it fired 2 long-range ballistic missiles from the Shahid Mahdavi warship in the Gulf of Oman. The missiles, with a claimed range of at least 1,700 kilometers, hit targets in a desert in central Iran. The exercise was intended to be a simulated test strike against an Israeli base. Here's a report. Take a look. The United States had rejected Vladimir Putin's suggestion of a ceasefire in Ukraine to freeze the war. According to reports, there are no signs of an endgame in Europe's deadliest conflict since World War II, and it illustrates just how far apart the world's 2 largest nuclear powers remain. As per news report, Putin sent signals to Washington in 2023 in public and through intermediaries that he was ready to consider a ceasefire. The intermediaries include Moscow's Arab partners in West Asia and others. Putin was proposing to freeze the conflict at the current lines and was unwilling to cede any of the Ukrainian territory controlled by Russia. The signal offered what someone in the Kremlin saw as the best path towards a peace of some kind. A senior Russian source with knowledge of the discussions in late 2023 and early 2024 said, and I quote, "The contacts with the Americans came to nothing." Another source told a report age that everything fell apart with the Americans. The source said the Americans did not want to pressure Ukraine. US President has for months been pushing Congress to approve more aid for Ukraine. Biden has faced opposition from allies of Republican presidential nomination frontrunner Donald Trump. A US official speaking in Washington on conditions of anonymity said Washington has not engaged in any back-channel discussions with Russia. The official said US was consistent in not going behind the back of Ukraine. Intermediaries met in Turkey in late 2023. According to 3 Russian sources, they said Putin's signal was relayed to top officials in Washington, including White House National Security Advisor, CIA Chief, and Anthony Blinken. Sullivan was to set out the next steps to Putin's foreign policy advisor, Yuri Ushakov. But when the call came in January, Sullivan told Ushakov US was willing to talk about other aspects of ties, but not a ceasefire without Ukraine. United States official refused to comment on Sullivan's purported calls or if such a conversation with Ushakov took place. Russian sources said the Kremlin sees little point in further contacts with the United States on the issue, so the war will continue. Some experts view the Russia-Ukraine war as a manifestation of the renewed geopolitical rivalry between major world powers. Analysts say Moscow is seeking to alter the Western-led system prevailing since the end of the Cold War. Western allies say the war has broken the entire security architecture built patiently on the European continent over many decades. At least 4 people were killed and 40 others have been abducted after armed gunmen opened fire in northwest Nigeria on Tuesday. The Zamfara State Police have confirmed the assault and have deployed reinforcements at the site of the attack. As per residents, the attackers hit the police station first, after which they went on to target civilian households. This assault was one in a chain of attacks by the armed group in the volatile northwest. Now let's remind you that Nigeria, which is Africa's biggest economy, faces issues such as banditry, violent attacks and kidnappings. Moreover, President Bola Tinubu has been unable to control the cost of living crisis faced by the West African nation. The violence spiraled in January after unemployment and police instability increased in the region.
As the 16th president of our beloved country.
Our correspondent Louisa joined us from Lagos in Nigeria. We asked her about the abductions and killings and what is the exact situation on the ground.
Various reports have confirmed the killing of 4 persons and abduction of about 40 residents, including women and children, in an attack of Kasuwa Daji town under the Kaura Namoda local government area in Zamfara State, Nigeria. Although the Zamfara State Police Command is yet to give an exact figure of the number of abducted persons, it however confirmed the incident to the media. Now, we know that northern states have for long been under the siege of bandits who carry out abductions, relentless attacks on villages, killing and maiming people, setting houses ablaze and displacing villagers. But quite worrisome is the Gestapo mode of attack and the sophisticated weapons used, some of which equates that of the military. As he rightly reported, the Tuesday attack saw the gunmen disarming a police station, and that we know has a lot of implications to the security of the community. We hope to bring more information as it unfolds.
In the United States, Republicans are planning hearings in the Congress to focus on President Joe Biden's age and memory lapses in an attempt to weaponize one of his key vulnerabilities. According to an Axios report, Republicans are expanding their impeachment inquiry against the Bidens. So far, it has focused on his son Hunter Biden's business dealings. They now want to include the president's fitness for office in the inquiry and keep questions about his mental ability in the headlines. The GOP plan includes hearings and even subpoenas for documents and recordings. According to reports, 3 House committee chairs have written to the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, to demand a transcript as well as any recordings of Biden's interview with Robert Hur. Hur is the special counsel who wrote last week that Biden suffers from a poor memory. House Republicans plan to seek testimony from Hur about how Biden's storage of sensitive documents could have hurt national security and about the president's mental acuity in the interview. For Biden, the age issue is potentially lethal. Poll after poll shows the 81-year-old's age is a top worry for voters and Democrats alike. Biden has in fact raised more questions through his recent gaffes that include mixing up the presidents of Mexico and Egypt. And these concerns have not gone past Hillary Clinton. The former Democrat presidential nominee has also said age is a legitimate issue for Biden and that this is something that the White House is aware of. China's popular destinations are filled with tourists immersing themselves in the festive spirit of the Spring Festival holiday to celebrate the 2024 Chinese New Year. Across China, cities are going all out to celebrate the Year of the Dragon with dazzling light and lantern shows, spectacular firework displays, folk art performances, and a wide array of other festivities. Numerous lights and lanterns have turned entire neighborhoods into splendid wonderlands. Shanghai in East China has launched over 200 cultural activities during the 8-day Spring Festival holiday that started on February 10th, including art exhibitions, plays and food fairs. 1.15 million tourists thronged the iconic architectural and cultural landmark and the Hukou waterfall in Linfen City, North China's Shanxi province, saw 35,000 tourist visits with over 10,000 daily visits. Authorities have deployed additional personnel and strengthened guidance at popular destinations to help tourists. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.